Welcome to The Other Worlds, where we talk to authors of fantasy, supernatural, and paranormal stories. Let's open the portal and meet our guest. Hello, my name is Sandra Rattan, and I am joined today by Jenni Howell. Jenni is a self described chaotic marshmallow who loves cooking and writes dark academia and thrillers. Okay, a former teacher, Jenni's New York Times bestselling debut is a philosophical paranormal mystery featuring an amateur sleuth. Welcome to the Other Worlds, Jenni.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's wonderful to get a chance to chat. And I've debated about how I wanted to start this off. Um, you know, uh, and I think my first question for you is, what's a chaotic marshmallow?
I laughed when that was part of the introduction that you pulled that from my website. I am essentially the opposite of my books. My books are dark and stabby and they spiral down towards the depths. And I am, as a person, fluffy and optimistic, and it's very difficult to get me to be anything but fluffy and optimistic and very, very cheerful. So, but I'm also incredibly disorganized and will jump from one thing to the next with the energy of a golden retriever on crack. So. That's how I got to my writing career, actually, was kind of accidentally as and it fits with with the chaotic marshmallow vibe and the stabby dark books.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
now Golden Retriever on crack is going to be part of your new bio, right?
It probably should be. I don't know if it's quite suitable for the young adult novels that I write, but
Well, it's funny, it's interesting that you're saying that because I had actually written this down, because you also described yourself on your website as a menace to society. And
Mm.
I have to say, when I read that, I thought, okay, this is a little bit more fitting because I've read this book and and but I've also met you in person. And
Yes.
so I was sitting here trying to reconcile like the person I met with this book. And in my head, I kept thinking like, if there's one character in this book that you're most like, I think it would be Baz.
Yeah.
But you seem very you do seem very opposite to the book. Would Baz be the most like you in your opinion?
I would say there are no real self-inserts in this book, but there's definitely pieces of things that I love or things that I've experienced in each of the characters. And Baz and her longing to find herself in other people and thereby find belonging is definitely a part of me. Like I love trying to understand other people and trying to approach them with empathy and just get like a little emotional togetherness. I love being around people, even though I'm actually incredibly introverted and it's very draining to me. So that part of Baz is very much an echo of myself. And that's probably why don't match my book as much when you meet me in person. It's made marketing it very difficult with the whole need to be very active online and posting things when I have this personality. Um, but the book is dark and vibey and it's just hard to make my face make those shapes.
Yeah, I mean, you could go with the goth girl look. Like, I mean,
I could try. I tried when I first started being active on social media to be like a little more serious, which so you could see like some of those old videos are still up, and it was just um, it felt like play acting, which is fine. That's not necessarily. I mean, a lot of social media is that, but I wanted to be more honest on there and just kind of let the chaos reign, and people hopefully will still figure out the book. The cover kind of markets it, for me.
well, in a way, you're sort of setting people up for the book experience because they might meet you and think that they're going to get one thing, and then they're just like, oh, whoa, guys.
That's true. That is like Marin, the main character. Oh, that's so fun. I've never thought about that. We're both lying about ourselves.
Well, there is that. Well, but it's interesting, just yeah, really just going right off the rails on a tangent, with this, but um, but it's interesting how so many authors do feel pressure to create a persona. And I do think though it's one of the things that's very true in terms of what you're saying that actually correlates to the book is that a central theme in the book is belonging. And
Mm,
you can't really belong if you aren't true to yourself. And
yeah,
so you're being true to yourself and providing an authentic interaction with who you really are, which is important, right? But like but that does tip me into the book because I was thinking about the theme of belonging and how it was really hard to know where any of these characters were at because they were still finding themselves. Why
yeah.
was it important for you to write about belonging?
Well, I think my first dream audience for this book is definitely teenagers. And I mean, being a young adult book, that's kind of obvious. But at the same time, like as an author, a lot of the people that I meet at events that are able to come to signings and come to events are adults. And so I always have to keep like at the forefront of my mind that my core audience is teens. Those are the people that I wrote this book for. And as a teen myself, the desire to be truly known by other people war deeply with the truth that I wasn't sure who I was. And it was so easy to let the people around me start to change that and start to change how I felt about myself, how I defined myself. The parts of me that were most dear were often chosen because of what someone else had shown approval for. And so I wanted to thread that feeling of desperately wanting to be accepted and known through to your core while also having a core that is constantly changing into the book and not just in the character arcs, but in the things that they're studying, in the philosophy, in the magic system, in the lies that they tell each other, and in the main character's whole approach to the very investigation. So that's why. And it's fun because they find it. Like there's always throughout the book, there are those moments of being truly known. And sometimes it's only in that moment. Sometimes the truth only lasts for that beat when they're together, but those moments sear and they become very, very important for the characters because it's such an important part of growing up and becoming a teen is deciding who you're going to be and how much say other people have in that.
Yeah, I mean the teen years are tumultuous and filled with transitions and changes and exploration. And I think that you've nailed that. And also like I heard someone say once that the reason that the music that you're most nostalgic for is the stuff that you listen to as a teenager is because your emotions are so intense as a teen and so your connections feel like they run deeper. And I totally got that vibe from this book. Like there were some very intense moments in this book between
Yeah.
characters.
Yes. Yes, they are. They go hard.
Yes. Yeah, and
They
it
not
yeah.
not shy back from the emotional experiences at all. I didn't want to pull any kind of curtains over that or pull any punches, so to speak.
And it's interesting because it's easy to look superficially and think about teens being reckless and about these teens in particular being reckless at times. But it runs a lot deeper than that because there is this deep desire to live and and to um, and to really embrace life and to have that experience to suck the marrow right out of
Yes.
living, right? But but it's such a struggle for them. And beyond any spoilers, what are some of the reasons that you think that it's such a struggle for the different characters to really feel like they're alive?
Oh, without spoilers.
I know, I
I
was, well, I mean, you,
yeah, no, I can say I can so I think For a lot of them, it's because there are so many, what's a good word for it? It's obligations that they have accepted from other people that are limiting that self-ownership, like we talked about earlier. They have layers of guilt and of shame and of lies that they're holding on to very, very tightly. And those are what's defining their daily existence and their emotional realities during the days is the lies that they have been told by other people, the lies that they have accepted and are telling themselves. And I think that that's why each one of them is so desperate to live because they have as just as equally strong forces from the other side trying to close them in and trying to hold them down. And that's completely ignoring even the dynamic between the two boys, where there's kind of a different reason why they're pursuing as much life as possible. But across the board with the characters, it's this emotional need to fight against lies and against guilt and against shame with kind of the fire of these intense, encapsulated experiences of risk and danger.
Yeah, now you touch on some of the motivations, some of the emotions that are central in the book, and they're motivators for the different characters. Guilt and grief being two of the key emotions that affect characters in the book. So I was wondering, what emotion would motivate you most, and why?
Oh, like in general daily life?
You pick the
I think
scenario.
for me, like on my best days, it's love. On my best days, it's a desire to make the experiences of people around me more filled with love because their lives touched mine, whether it's through the book, which is ironic because it's so dark, or through a conversation or through something that I am able to do for them. On my worst days, it's definitely shame. Like I think just being a human person, there are things that I am triggered by decisions that I've made and that I work very hard to not do the same thing again. And it's just one is outward focused and productive and helps me to bring good, and the other one is very inward focused and usually it just turns and eats itself in a cycle there. And I think that dichotomy of motivators in my own life is very much something that makes its way into my fiction as well. And I wrote that into my character's decision making in this book, and then kind of in a turn turntable way in my next book as well, because I find it very interesting when those two things war as motivators in our lives.
Yeah, that's actually like something that Jamie's really dealing with, or Aaron. I mean, throughout the book, is that there are these internal motivators, and then there's the external, and all
Mhm.
of the relationship dynamics start to feed these and twist the emotions and the motives, and and it all gets very foggy very fast. But I don't think that, I actually don't think that your motivation of love um, is really that contrary to your book, in the sense that at the core there was so much love for life. There's so much desire for that, and want for it. And I think that, as teens do, there's loads of mistakes made and misunderstandings perhaps, but that genuine desire is there. Like there's, you
Yeah.
know, in some respects, I mean, you could argue, like, in some respects, Jamie had a void that her cousin had always filled, and now that's just a well of grief, right? That's seeking justice. But on the flip side, you can also say, I mean, I do believe she loved her cousin
Oh yeah.
and was
Yep.
genuinely motivated um by a desire for justice, because she went to, she talked to the sheriff first. It wasn't
Yeah.
like she just automatically ran off and did her own thing. She tried to get justice for him the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, she did. And it's very much a part of the climax too at the end. Um, love is the resolution in some ways to things. Interestingly enough, about the sheriff, there used to be 10 whole chapters that take place in Aberdeen where you get to see Marin trying to pursue that original line of justice through the system, and it does not go very well. Those are all gone now.
Yeah, that happens sometimes in editing. And I mean,
Yep.
I did read in one of your interviews that you went through some rigorous rewrites with this.
Yes, yes, this is the book that I learned to write a book on, really. Um, it's the first book that I've ever finished to the point that it could be called a book. And it took me a lot of work over a couple years to figure that out. And yeah, from bones, from nothing, about 8 times of fully rewriting this, and then heavy edits with my editor as well, who's an amazing her mind is amazing. She saw exactly what this book needed to kind of cinch it together and make it really sing. So it was a process, but I am thankful for it. It's been amazing.
Yeah, my personal take is that you really learn how to write when you have been edited by a pro.
Yes.
Because there's so much in the early learning experience that you don't see in your own work until somebody else gets you to take that
Yeah.
step back and look at it, right? So,
Yep. And that's the beautiful part of doing that with my editor was just how wonderfully she saw what I was actually trying to do with this book because I had multiple offers on it and they were not all, well, they were all awesome editors that probably would have been a joy to work with. They didn't all see exactly what I was trying to do with it. And because it doesn't fit into thriller or into murder mystery, it really is a dark academia, and that's kind of like where it ends, is it is a dark academia. And trying to shove it into one genre or the other, I don't think would have left it with the story that I had wanted it to be. And she really knew how to guide me through keeping its weirdness.
well, and I think that works for her really well, but I mean, to me, I also do think that it does fall. I think it can fall within mystery. It's just not,
Yeah,
it's not, I don't like the term. I was going to say it's not pure mystery, but I don't mean that in the sense of like
yeah,
impure. I mean, as in like it's got the paranormal aspects to it,
yes,
right? So it's sort of within a subgenre of mystery, I guess is what I
yes.
would
And
say.
I think for me, the mystery was never really the point in writing it. It was Marin's goal, but the goal of the book was how looking for answers changed her. Which I suppose is in many, in many murder mysteries, it can be that too. Like I think of Tana French is an amazing one where there's murder mysteries going on, but the point is what happens to the characters along the way. And you get the killer at the end, but the whole novel is more about the people. I love those books so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the characters that grab you and keep you, right? I mean, to me, and that really is the fascinating thing about the journey of reading this story because um it's all the dynamics and it's unwrapping them throughout that that keeps you just turning the pages late at night because you want to see how this is going to unfold. So, but I am curious, how well do you think you would do as an amateur sleuth?
So remember we introduced me as a chaotic marshmallow, and I don't think I do very well. I'm not great with spreadsheets, um, or staying on task. I I love publishing because I can hyper focus on something for, between like 2 weeks and 6 weeks of intense writing, and then it just disappears from my life for several months, while my editor has it, and then it's back to me. Um, I would have to have a very good, I think I'd be a good Watson, actually. I think I would be an excellent, like, the person that's coming up with the bad ideas and yeeting them at the detective so that he can smarmily tell me that I'm wrong. But that has to do with too, when I write a book, I write the wrong book the first several times and I have to just keep rewriting it. So I suppose if I had enough time to find the murderer, we would be fine. I would accuse the wrong person multiple times and eventually I'd get it right.
So actually not that unlike Jamie then, really.
Yeah, no, not that unlike Jamie. I said, there's a little bit of me in every character.
Yeah, they have, pieces of yourself have a way of slipping in. So, yeah, I mean, that makes me think that you are a pantser when it comes to writing.
I I think I am naturally. Yes, I start off with a pitch. I always begin with a pitch, and then that becomes kind of like a sketchy synopsis, but that's never longer than a couple pages. And from there, I just dive into drafting. Um, Working more formally with the publishing team, especially on the second book, has forced me to become a little bit more rigid with outlining and with working out the story structure before I dive in because there isn't time to rewrite a book, 7, 8 times. I have to only rewrite it twice. And so that means the early rewrites, so to speak, need to happen at the skeleton stage. And it's been a growth period for me with shifting away from being a pantser and having most of that chaos happening in my head and in very simple outline structure and working through those over and over and over again instead.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of the growth process, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
know, and
it's been good, and I'm loving the way that my next book is shaping up. So like I think that genuinely all authors, I mean, you're an author yourself, have different strengths when it comes to the process that make us like more naturally a pantser or a plotter, but with practice, we can learn. It's all just skills, and some come more naturally than others, but we can learn things to kind of help ourselves hone
so
different abilities.
on that note, then, what do you think is the most surprising thing that you have learned since becoming an author?
Oh, um, the most surprising thing that I've learned since becoming an author, I think just how deep and vivid the emotional swings are. I've always been an emotional person. Um, I like feeling things, but there's a little bit of me that's in Henry. But I was not prepared for how thoroughly I would feel the highs and the lows. I don't think I've had many jobs, but I've never had one that has quite the emotional punch of this one. When someone loves your book, it's exciting like nothing else other than childbirth, meeting my children, has been. When someone hates it, like that's a whole different experience. And like both are good and true. Like every single book, readers have their own reactions and their own world with the book, and both are valid reactions to the work. And it was very interesting for me just how like deeply I had to process some of these things where I thought when I first started out that it was you know, just going to kind of roll off me and it would be interesting and maybe a little bit exciting, but it's a roller coaster. It really is. And now my answer is I just don't read reviews. So I still get the highs and the lows though. It's just all from much larger things with my publishing team or with meeting people at events or with getting to travel for this book or anything. They're all still there. So man, it's a lot. I can see why a lot of authors are in therapy because I think it's a good idea.
Well, yeah, it's funny that you say that because, I mean, have been around since the aughts, so the blog days, and I will never forget Anne Fraser made a blog post and posed the question, "Are authors broken?" And I mean, the discussion in the comments on that post was lively and long. I mean, but in some respects, it does feel like we all have a little bit of something broken inside ourselves, but maybe that's part of what enables us to kind of understand some of the human condition, because
Mm,
there's definitely that's a theme
yeah,
in this book as well. I mean, these are broken people, and
yeah,
even if they don't realize it, um, and that's that's a central thing that kind of keeps coming back around, that all of them are damaged.
yeah. I mean, all of us, all humans are broken. I think that authors, we just perhaps let our brokenness a little bit closer to the surface. Um, we're willing to lay it bare and really take a turn paging through it and seeing where it comes from. Doesn't mean that we can fix it, doesn't mean we can do anything about it. But I think that one of the differences between an author and like other people just going about their daily lives is just that willingness to sift through all of the cracks and see what lies inside. And that was something that some of the characters are more willing to do than others. In my book, Mary in particular is not super interested at self-examination. She's very emotional. She's very driven. She does not want to think about how she might be wrong about things and where her different flaws are coming from, which of course is the only thing that Henry is interested in. Everybody else figuring out the flaws. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's part of why I wrote the dedication that I did in it to all those too monsters to be loved. It isn't true, is because this is kind of a love letter to the brokenness inside me and inside all of us, and a plea that we um, let it out before it destroys us.
Well, that's a very profound message. And I mean, I do feel like this is one of the reasons why this is a book that resonates for me personally, and why I can imagine it resonating for a lot of people, because it goes back to that quest for belonging, right? When we're aware that we're broken and damaged in different ways, and we feel like we don't belong, one of the places where you can find that, hate to use this word, mirror. um, but fiction can be that mirror and can show us that you're not the only one. This is,
Yes,
in some respects, this is normal. It's okay.
yes,
And
yes. Definitely not everything that happens in my book is okay, but the emotions, yes. That was for me as a teen. Like I always say my best friends were in books. Like I carried the Wheel of Time series. Those chonkers, I carried those with me everywhere, every single day of high school. I just read straight through them, and when I finished, I would start them again. Or Salvatore books. I was a huge like fan. They were my friends that were always there, even when I wasn't sure about any of my, flesh and bone friends or world around me. Like I had books, and that is one of the reasons I am so happy that I get the privilege of being an author of young adult books today, is because I hope that someday there will be a kid who finds friends in my book. Maybe these are super dysfunctional friends to find, but like, hey, it's fine.
they are super dysfunctional, but at the same time, they do have love for each other.
They do
And
so much.
yeah, and a loyalty. It's not easy to become part of their group because they are so tight, and you
Yeah.
can, from if you're standing on the outside, you can look at that and think that that might mean that they're snobbish, but as you get to know them, it's really because of this depth of connection with them, you know, and commitment to
Shared
each
pain.
other.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of shared pain, and I mean that's one of the issues with the dynamics in the book is how much that pain is kind of romanticized and glorified instead of processed. They romanticize their suffering and dig deeper into it and isolate themselves more through it to kind of embrace all of the aesthetics of their suffering as opposed to, expunging it.
Yes, well, they're at a stage where they would rather feel pain than nothing at all.
Yes. Yeah.
So they cling to it because it feels real. And actually that kind of leads into one of the things that I actually wanted um to talk about was in many respects what happened in this book could not have happened, or certainly would not have happened in the same way at all if there had been present parents
Yeah.
in lives. And
Yeah.
and um although it's not the central storyline and or central theme, did you think about wanting to write about absent parents? Because you're referencing a lot of absent parents in this book.
There were a lot of spirits in the book. Yes. Um, I mean, it's definitely, I think, a pain that many teenagers feel, and that I think is important to have on page. It's one that I struggled with at points of my childhood. Um, there was, in earlier drafts, having Amberdeen on the page and everything did shift the dynamics a little bit when you actually got to meet Dad earlier and um, get some more grounding to Marin's past there. So I'm hoping to like someday have some of those as bonus material or something because it would be fun. But yeah, it's definitely having the parents pull back and choose to allow the teens their freedom was a purposeful choice because I think a lot of times it's kind of like teens will be teens and their choices will be as self-destructive as they are. They're going to be fine. We just have to kind of get them through this stage of life. And decisions when you're a teen have a lot of power, not just, on the relationships you have with each other, but for the rest of your life sometimes. And I think that I don't know. Yeah, it's a hole that is keenly felt when the adults choose not to get involved. And it's also keenly felt when the adults are involved in the wrong way, too.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. But I definitely found myself thinking that um
Yeah.
I would have loved this book as a teen. And but also I feel like it's an important book for parents to read because look what happens when you're not paying attention because not all parents are exactly absent, and one of them still is um
Yeah.
yeah, a mess. Not
Yeah.
helpful.
One of the
Shall we say not
very different priorities. Yes, she has very different priorities than necessarily the emotional health of her child.
yeah, and that could be like a whole other subject because like that's you know I,
Other
and
books. One of my favorite books is kind of about that. All My Rage by Saba Tahir. I see you have air right there. And so
yes I
I
do.
know you've read Saba. All My Rage is a fantastic, like, other look at the impact of parents and family systems and everything like that. That's a really good book.
Yeah, I have a number of her books that are on my TBR, and I can't.
Oh,
Air was my first, so
oh
um
wow, you like jumped in the back half of the series.
well, I don't mind doing that. I sometimes I like doing that. Yeah, anyway, I just find like there's always a book that this will whatever reason this is the book that brings me to an author, and then I have to
Yeah.
devour everything that they've ever written.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it's the gateway, you know? It's
yeah.
it's the gateway and it's okay if the gateway is partway through. I'm always I read the first and then I walk away and don't read any of the others. So I have my own problems that
You know
I've read so many.
yeah. If only I read faster. I am a really slow reader.
Oh, I feel
So
like no matter how fast you are, you always wish you were faster because there's always going to be more books.
yeah, and that's the thing. And so then you have to choose what you can prioritize, and it's anyway. But anyway, but just to to get back on track and move towards wrapping this up, I do I did want to ask you this, and because there's a quote from the book.
Mm.
He looks genuinely happy, but it's not real happiness, just ignorance.
Hmm.
And when I was reading that, it made me think about a question that Henry asks Jamie at one point. Do you like watching people?
Hmm.
Do you like watching people?
Yeah, of course I do. I'm an author.
So
Oh,
you go out and sit in the coffee shop and look at people and start getting ideas? Is that part of your process? Maybe.
maybe. Maybe even at book events. No, where I met certain podcasters. No. I think it's something all authors have to do unless you're going to keep writing yourself over and over and over and over again. And like that works better in some genres than others where, the FMC really is just a wonderful self-insert so that readers can go on an adventure and have a great romance. Which I'm not just talking like I'm not downplaying any of that. I think those books are beautiful. It is less, for the type of stories I want to write, I have to know other people's lives. I have to know what's going on. I think all authors do. Like, I think you really can't do a self-insert over and over and over again. You have to understand what makes other people tick and what their passions are and what their triggers are and just all of the different ways that emotional motivators like love and shame work in them very differently from me so that you can write characters where those ripples go out the way that they do for another person. And you're never, at least for me, like I'm never taking an interaction that I see in public and using that in a book. Like I never take a person and go, boom, you're my character, you know? But like little truths about them, little things that are um, anomalies where it's an unexpected moment where it's like, I, as a person, would never have done that. I take that and I take the the potential rules of behavior, the potential reasoning behind it, and I use those to craft characters of my own and character reactions and everything based off of those things. So yes, I am a creep. I steal people's oddities and interesting moments. I also take names. So like, baristas are in danger of being immortalized in a Jenny book because I have a file where the moment I see an interesting name, there it goes in there. And I will use that in a book at some point. So yes, I love people watching. I always have, even before I started writing. I loved taking a book and I would sit, always in the window seat of a cafe or restaurant or just on a bench, in a park or something. And I would half read and I would half watch and just enjoy seeing people be people. Like I thought we're fascinating and there's so many variations on the same exact theme of being alive that it's never not going to be interesting. I went off.
You have, we've now added something else to your bio, a collector of oddities.
Yeah, there we go. I do call myself a people collector. That's one of my favorite
Yeah,
hobbies.
that's kind of similar. So before we go, is there anything that you can tell us about your upcoming project?
It should be publicly announced very soon. We are like coming down the landing strip with a gorgeous cover and title and everything that I'm very, very excited about. So there are definitely more details coming soon. Right now, what I can share is that Boys with Sharp Teeth is a standalone, and this book is also a standalone, but I purposely wrote them to be almost mirror images of each other. So there's a lot of the same themes at play of belonging, of love, of guilt, of romanticized darkness, but in very, very different dynamics and ways, with a very different outcome too. And so it was fun to take the same themes and kind of in my head make it like an emotional duology, but then change the characters so that they're interplaying with these themes in completely different ways. Like we were just talking about, there's endless variations on the theme of being alive and of belonging and of, how humans yearn for love and being seen. And this one is in some ways much darker than Boys with Sharp Teeth, a little more violent, but it's also much more romantic than Boys with Sharp Teeth. Um, so it's been fun. It's been a challenge to write, and I have rewritten it multiple times, as is my way. But it's I think it's going to be a lot of fun to read. I hope.
Does that mean that there might be like a mirror, a parallel image to the shower scene in the new book?
Oh, there is their own version of Forbidden Touch. Yes, it happens in a graveyard though, instead of in a shower. So that's actually what I was working on when I missed our first call because this is I was late, y'all. I was late because I was working on that scene. So
Well,
it just swept me away.
I'm not going to fault you for being late if you're working on that scene, you know. So yeah, it's funny that you I brought out my tombstone notebook
Oh,
um
perfect.
paper for this to write all my questions down because of
Oh my
graves.
there. I should get some of those for like doing book plates or something for this next book. That would be great.
Yeah, that actually would be a great idea. So a nice touch. So on that note, to wrap things up, one final question for you.
Yes.
Directly influenced by the book, do you write notes in books?
Yes, I do. I do. Look, here, I have one of my favorites here.
Oh wow.
I write all over my books. The more that I love a book, the more scribbles it gets. But I do argue with my books and write on them. And when that was part of their design for this one to have actually the marginalia in the text, it just made me so happy. Made me so happy.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting touch and it's an interesting way of having characters communicate. And without giving anything away, I'll maybe put a pin in it right there, because
That
there's
was
some
one of my favorite parts to write. I loved it. I had so much fun with that.
yeah, no, I can imagine. And sometimes even when you're writing something really dark, some of that fun and love comes through.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, so this is a fantastic book. It's one hell of a debut. I mean, congrats, because
Oh, thank you.
it's always a process telling the story that you really want to tell, and I'm really glad that you got the opportunity to work with an editor who helped you make it all that it could be. And yeah, it's a fantastic book. So congrats again, and thank you so much for being here today and chatting with me.
Oh, thank you. I'm having one of those like emotional moments that we talked about earlier.
Well, as long as it's a good emotional moment.
It is, yes. I'm trying not to cry.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah, it's hard. It is hard when you are a very emotional person because I do think that a lot of us feel things very deeply. And maybe people don't understand just how personal it is because you've spent all of this time creating these characters and getting to know them and telling their story and sharing it. And then, and then you're just
Yes,
waiting to
it
see how
is,
people will respond.
but it is a voluntary act to release that work of love to the public to read. And so part of that contract is that they're free to receive it any which way that they would like to. So I definitely don't, while I've had to process my own emotions, I like value every person that has picked up the book and I'm so grateful and so thankful for both the ones that loved it and the ones that didn't and just for giving it a chance and just the fact that it's out there is such a privilege and a joy, and the fact that it has found its people and it has found readers who are feral for it and are just like the most amazing people ever is more of a dream than I could have conceived of. You know, I had a bucket list and this has just exceeded every single item on it. So, thank you for having me to chit chat about it. This was also a joy and an honor.
Well, thanks again for being here.